Allie's story. Allie says, in 2011, I was 27 years old. My life was simple, dull, and conventional, with nothing new to it. I hadn't completed my university education, and I didn't have a stable job. Whenever I joined a job, I was quickly dismissed just as usual. The reason was my extreme irritability and poor behavior. I admit that I wasn't a good person. Even my father himself would say that. He had kicked me out of the house more than once, and he would always shout at me, calling me useless, a failure, and irresponsible. He hurled insults at me that I couldn't even repeat. But honestly, my father was right. I had been like an animal, not understanding the meaning of life, and to me, it had no value until that day that turned my life upside down. In 2011, I had just gotten a job, and as I knew all too well, it wouldn't last more than a few days before I was fired, just like always. This job was at a fast food restaurant in the working-class neighborhood where I lived. The restaurant was very close to my house, so I would walk there, passing through old alleys, simple houses, old telephone booths, and small grocery stores. I would see children playing in the streets. I know the term telephone booths might have caught your attention. It was 2011, yet those booths still stood in our neighborhood. I don't know who uses them now, considering everyone has mobile phones, even small children. But those booths are still there, remnants of a bygone era, now serving as shelters for stray cats, with walls covered in crude graffiti, as though they were journals of quarrels between strangers. To me, I had grown accustomed to their presence, so much so that sometimes I didn't even notice them as I passed by. One night, at 3 a.m, I was coming back from work, exhausted. All I wanted was to get home and sleep. The weather was cold, and rain was pouring heavily. The neighborhood was utterly quiet. Not a soul on the streets, not even the cats, who had taken refuge from the rain. The only sound was the rain filling the air. The darkness was thick, and I could barely make out lights in the distance, appearing every 10 buildings or so. I walked, trying to shield my face from the rain, lifting my head occasionally to check the road, then returning my gaze to my feet. Suddenly, my eyes landed on the old telephone booth. It wasn't unusual, since I knew I was nearing my house, and the booth had always been a marker indicating I was almost there. However, just a few meters after passing it, something happened that I had never anticipated. The phone inside the booth rang. I stopped in my tracks, unable to believe what I had heard. The booth was old, and the phone had been out of order for years. How could it be ringing? In this quiet neighborhood, at this late hour, the sound of the ring was clear and disturbing. A chill ran through my body. Slowly I turned around and found myself walking back toward the booth, hesitantly. But just as I reached it, the ringing stopped. I stood there, staring at the phone, thinking, had I arrived earlier, would I have answered it? Who could possibly be calling a deserted booth at this hour? And why should I even answer? I felt a strange sense of relief when the phone stopped ringing, though I couldn't explain why. Perhaps because I wasn't forced to make a decision about answering. But within 10 seconds, it rang again. Without thinking, I opened the booth's door and picked up the receiver. I said confidently, "Hello, who's this?" On the other end, there was no clear voice, only intermittent breaths and strange static. I repeated, "Hello, who is calling?" But no one answered, only deep silence and vague breaths. At that moment, I quickly put the receiver back in its place and left the booth, my nerves frazzled. But I convinced myself that my curiosity had been satisfied. I continued to my home and threw myself onto the bed, sinking into sleep. The next day, I was so busy at work that I completely forgot about what had happened at the booth. However, when I returned home, I couldn't resist stopping by again. My heart began to race and an inexplicable sense of dread filled me. Could the phone ring again? Would I hear those same breaths? Who could be behind this? Sure enough, after passing the booth by a few meters, the phone rang again. I thought to myself, this is surely a prank. Someone is watching me and messing with me. I angrily returned to the booth, grabbed the receiver immediately, and said sharply, "Hello, who's this?" Silence reigned for a moment until I heard a soft voice calmly say, "Good evening, how are you?" It was a woman's voice. I felt both stunned and confused, but I composed myself and asked, "Who are you?" She answered cheerfully, "My name is Yasmin, and I'm happy to be talking to you." I asked her, perplexed, "But why are you calling a public telephone booth?" She chuckled slightly, then said, "I don't know. I found the emergency button on the phone and pressed it, and here I am, talking to you." I paused for a moment and then asked seriously, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" She was silent for a moment, then replied in a calm voice, "I'm dead." A cold shiver ran through my body. I stared into the void, not believing what I had heard. I gathered myself and sarcastically said, "You mean dead from joy, right? Like what girls post on Instagram." She laughed softly, then said with certainty, "No, I am dead, in the literal sense of the word." Her words were cold, sharp, as if they pierced me like a knife. At that moment, I realized this call was no ordinary one, and this night would not be like the others. Ali laughed sarcastically and said, "You girls always write like this. Of course you're dead from joy and happiness, aren't you? But not in the literal sense of the word dead, meaning your heart stopped and your pulses ceased." At this moment, Yasmin laughed softly and replied, "You've made me laugh a lot. No, I'm dead. I mean, really dead." In that moment, Ali realized he was speaking to a real girl, a girl who lived in one of the houses near the booth, waiting for him to pass by every night so she could call him on the public phone. Perhaps she liked him and created this trick just to talk to him. Or maybe it was just a game for her. It didn't matter. The important thing was that she was a girl wanting to talk to him on the phone. So why not play along? He raised the receiver to his ear again, then looked around at the surrounding buildings. At that very moment, Yasmin's voice came through. "Don't bother yourself. I'm not to your right or left, not in front of you or behind you." Ali laughed inwardly, realizing that this girl was indeed watching him from one of the windows, but he couldn't see her in the darkness of the night. He thought, she must be enjoying stirring my curiosity. All right, if she wants to play, I'll play along. I'm no ordinary person. I'm a lover of adventures. He said jokingly, Okay, I won't search for you, but tell me, what do you want from me?" Her voice came calmly. "I don't want anything from you. I'm dead, that's all." Ali laughed again and said, "Oh, right. I forgot you're dead. I shouldn't have asked you that question. Okay, let's change the subject. Tell me, what does death feel like? Since you're dead, you must know, right?" At this point, Yasmin's voice came through with a serious and confident tone, as though she hadn't caught his sarcasm. "Honestly, it doesn't feel good. Death is cold. I feel like my skin has no sensation. I can move my joints, but it feels like if I move too fast, I'll shatter and collapse, as though my bones are about to separate from my body. Breathing is difficult, short and interrupted, as if I'm suffocating all the time. It's a very disturbing feeling." Ali began to feel that the girl wasn't joking. She was speaking with utter seriousness. He wondered to himself, does she truly believe this? Or is she just a master of acting? But he decided to go along with it to see where this conversation would lead. He said calmly, "All right, tell me. When and how did this happen? How can you say you're dead?" Her voice seemed to carry a touch of reminiscence. "I was in the bathroom. I slit my wrists, but I don't remember why I did it. I don't think I wanted to die. I didn't really want to die." At this point, Ali felt the conversation was taking a darker turn. It was no longer enjoyable for him. He hadn't been seeking a sad drama, but rather a strange nighttime amusement. He thought, this girl is ruining my fun with this gloomy story. All this talk about death is boring. He sighed and said in a calm voice, "Yasmin, listen. You've made my night quite exciting, full of thrills. I was happy to talk to you, but now it's time to say goodbye." Before waiting for her reply, he hung up the phone. But just 1 second later, the phone rang again. Ali felt a shiver run through his body. No phone in the world reconnects that quickly. It should have taken at least a few seconds to dial the number again, but the ringing came immediately, as if the call had never been cut off. He stared at the phone hesitantly, but picked up the receiver again. As soon as he did, Yasmin's voice came through, this time angry, stern, and completely different from her previous tone. "No, how dare you leave? Who gave you permission to leave? Who allowed you to hang up the line?" Ali felt his heart begin to race. This time, it wasn't just a game. Ali's voice trembled as he asked, "Why? Who are you? Why won't you let me leave?" Yasmin's voice came cold as ice, but with an eerie command. "Because you're the only one who can help me, and in return, I'll help you." He responded, his anger flaring. "What could I possibly gain from a girl who claims she's dead? I'd end up in a mental hospital for 2 years, or lose my mind because of you." Yasmin laughed mockingly and said, "Calm down, Ali. Don't be angry. I can deliver a message to you from the world I'm in, a message that could change your life. Don't you want to hear from the 2 young men you ran over with your car and fled from?" Ali's heart stopped for a moment. He couldn't even swallow his saliva. His throat was dry, and sweat began to bead on his skin despite the cold of the night. A strange warmth surged through his body, a heat that didn't seem normal, as if it came from within, from the depths of his unsettled soul. "Who are you? Who's with you? What are you, for God's sake?" Her response was chilling, her voice sending a wave of terror through him. "Don't be afraid. What's wrong with you? Are you shivering? We, the dead, know everything. We know about the 2 young men your car hit. We know about your regret and your recurring nightmares. They also want to reach you, to tell you something." At that moment, Ali exploded in anger, shouting into the phone, "Enough! Who the hell are you? I don't even know if your name is Yasmin. I swear I'll find you, I'll track you down, and make you pay." Yasmin laughed again, but this time it seemed as if she was whispering directly into his ear, closer than he could ever imagine. "I'm dead, Ali. How will you kill me? Just like you killed the others? Come on, come and kill me if you can. My full name is Yasmin Mohammed Salem. Search for me, come to me, if you dare." Ali immediately hung up the phone, but the phone rang again at the same moment. His body was trembling all over. He ran toward his house without looking back, but he could still hear the phone ringing, chasing him in the dark. He entered the house panting, his heart nearly bursting out of his chest. His mother was praying at dawn and called for him, but he ignored her. His father shouted at him, asking him to come to the mosque, but he didn't respond. Even his sister came out of her room, asking what was going on, but he paid no attention to anything except reaching his room. As soon as he closed the door behind him, his mobile phone rang. He looked at the screen in shock. Unknown number. First caller. No name, only the words, unknown number. His heart skipped a beat. How? How could this be? How did she move from the phone booth to his personal phone? He raised the phone hesitantly, then answered in a faint voice. Her voice came through. The same voice with the same chilling calm. I haven't finished talking yet, Ali. I was telling you that they don't blame you, the two young men your car hit. They know you were scared, and they know you're still suffering, but they want to tell you something. Ali wanted to hang up, throw the phone away, and hide under the covers until morning, hoping that this would all turn out to be just a nightmare. But an idea crossed his mind, an idea that froze him in place. What if this is real? What if this is a call from the other side? But no one knows what happened. No one knows I caused the accident. I never told anyone. So how? He swallowed hard, then said in a trembling voice, "Where are you? How can I see you? I want to see you. I want to see your face." There was silence for a few seconds. Then her voice came, colder than ever before. "Ali, you won't like where I am. It's very cold and dark. My body hasn't been buried yet." He felt a prickling sensation all over his body, and his voice shook as he whispered, What do you mean? Where are you?" She answered him in a terrifying voice. "I'm in the morgue, Ali. Didn't I tell you it's cold? Where else could I be?" His blood froze in his veins, and he no longer knew how to react. He only realized one thing. This night would not pass in peace. The old man stood still, staring at me before asking, "Do you know the way there? Do you have a description of the place?" I shook my head, denying it. "No, sir. I don't know, but everyone knows the general hospital. I'm sure you do." The old man smiled a mysterious smile and said, Yes, it's a dream. Just a dream." I greeted him coldly, ignoring his words, and quickly walked away before he could memorize my features. I got into my car and drove straight to the general hospital. On my way, amidst the traffic and the dancing lights in the darkness, the phone rang. I glanced at the screen. An unknown number. I didn't need to check. I knew it was Yasmin, waiting for me. I reached the general hospital, one of the oldest in the country, with its old building and corridors that told stories of pain and death. The place looked abandoned, as if no one wanted to be treated here, or perhaps no one ever left once they entered. I wasted no time and headed straight to where the morgue was. The basement, underground, as they call it, the vault. The place was dark, reeking of dampness and death, and the air was thick with silence, as if the souls still fluttered here, unable to escape. The phone kept ringing, screaming through the space, as if its sound alone could awaken the dead. I felt my legs betray me, but I pressed on. I knew I was about to face something I couldn't bear, but still I didn't turn back. At the end of the dark corridor, I stood before an old iron door, one that seemed to have been here for centuries, towering in its faded gray. Above it, a sign in red read, "The Morgue." I looked around, searching for the guard or anyone. I called out in a trembling voice, "Is anyone here?" But only silence answered me. The phone rang again. There was no escape now. I breathed deeply, lifted the phone to my ear, and Yasmin's voice came cold as the grave. "Are you looking for the guard?" I replied. my voice shaky. "Yes, where is he? I want to finish this here." She laughed, a laugh that sent chills down my spine. "Don't worry, I'll open the door for you myself. Just stand there." I felt my heart sink to my stomach. This isn't right. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't see what I'm about to see. I quickly turned around, determined to leave, but I heard the sound of iron creaking, the door opening slowly. I turned slowly and found the door ajar, with cold mist spilling out. The light inside was dim, tinged with blue, as if the place were from another world. I took a deep breath, steeled my courage, and took 2 steps forward. I began mumbling all the verses I had memorized, as if they were a shield to protect me from what awaited me. I entered. The place was just as I expected. It was cold to the bone, the walls worn, and the space was filled with metal drawers, each bearing a number. Behind each number, a lifeless body. Yasmin had been honest. The place was freezing, bone-chilling, but if no one was here, then who opened the door? I walked slowly, scanning my surroundings, but there was no sign of Yasmin. Was she just a hallucination, or had she really been here? Without realizing it, I reached for the first drawer and pulled it open. I screamed and recoiled in terror. The body in front of me was charred, featureless. I immediately closed the drawer, feeling nauseous, but curiosity, fear, terror. Everything pushed me to pull out another drawer. What I saw there was no better. Remains of a body, nothing more. I ran away, overwhelmed by nausea, vomiting in a corner of the morgue. Then I wiped my mouth, trembling, realizing that I wouldn't leave until I knew the truth. I retraced my steps and opened a 3rd drawer. There was a man, his face marked with bruises, his wounds still unhealed, as if he had been sleeping in a grim calm. I looked down at his feet, and there it was, the paper with his name on it. Ahmed Mohammed Salem. My breath quickened, and I began to lose feeling in my legs. I pulled another drawer and found another body, almost identical to the first, and on the paper it was written, Abdullah Mohammed Salem, Mohammed Salem. But Yasmin had told me her name was Yasmin Mohammed Salem. Suddenly I heard a sound behind me. It was her voice. She whispered, filled with sorrow and anger. "Yes, these are my brothers. You hit them with your car and killed them. I miss them, just as I miss the life I destroyed." I slowly turned around and found a girl standing there, in her early 20s, her body covered with a white shroud, her skin pale with a bluish tint, and dark circles around her eyes, as though she hadn't slept in centuries. But blood was dripping from her hand, one drop at a time, staining the cold floor beneath her. She was moving toward me, slowly, with steady steps, as if she knew I wouldn't be able to run. "You killed my brothers, and now you've come here on your own feet, as if you're searching for your death." This was not the Yasmin's voice I had known. It was a voice saturated with horror, a voice from another world, a world I should never have stepped into. The voices rose in intensity, 100 sounds intertwining, screaming, whispering, threatening, crying. But her voice was the clearest among them. I had no one but them, and after they died, I went to my brother Abdullah's wife, the brother you killed in cold blood. I stayed there for 6 months, 6 months of torment, of pain, of wailing. In the end, I couldn't accept what had happened. I went into the bathroom, looked at my hands, then at the life that no longer meant anything to me. I slit my veins and chose to be here, with them, forever. I am the one crying here, the one mourning here. I couldn't save them in life, but I will avenge them even after death. Suddenly the shadows thickened in the room. Terrifying forms materialized out of nothing, beings that didn't belong to the human world, their hair tangled like serpents, their eyes burning with black fire. Among these horrifying entities, I saw them. The two men I had run over, standing there, their eyes bleeding, as if they were crying their blood instead of tears. Terror seized me. I tried to run, but my legs betrayed me, and I fell where I stood, feeling something invisible lift me into the air, then drop me to the ground as if I were a doll in its hands. It tossed me back and forth, up and down, my body breaking, my bones creaking under the weight of the blows. Yasmin's voice rose above the insane laughter. "Do you hear that sound? This phone will never stop ringing. You'll hear it echo in your head for the rest of your life. A promise from me. It will never stop. I won't kill you. No. Death would be a mercy for you, and I don't want you to die. I want you to suffer, to live in this torment forever." Then the blows rained down from all sides, as if all the ghosts had agreed to tear me apart. I felt a rib crack, then another. The pain was unbearable until I couldn't tell the difference between life and death, between dream and reality. In a moment, my eyes opened. There was no daylight. I wasn't in the morgue. I was in an old wooden cabin, the phone lying on the floor, the receiver in my hand, screaming, "Hello, hello, answer me." I saw my father standing over me, pulling me with force, and my mother crying bitterly. "I don't know what's happening to him. What's going on here?" My father carried me in his arms and walked me home, but I could hear the voices of people around us, whispering, looking at me with pity and fear. There's no power and no strength except with God. This is the son of Hajj Khalid, poor thing. He's been like this for months. No one knows his story with this cabin. He ran away from the mental hospital twice. They took him for treatment, but he keeps returning, finding himself here, lying inside it. They say he tried to steal bodies from the morgue and sell them to medical students, but he fell and hit his head on the autopsy table, and since that day, his mind hasn't been the same. No, that's not what I heard. They say he committed a crime and confessed to it, but now he doesn't remember anything. The words echoed in my head, but I couldn't make sense of them. I didn't know what was happening to me. I didn't know who I was now, or where I was, or how I ended up here. When we were halfway there, I broke free from my father's grip, running quickly toward the cabin again. I could only hear the sound of the phone, calling me, pulling me toward it as if it were a magnet drawing my soul. I heard their voices behind me, shouting, trying to pull me back. "Ali, stop! Go back home!" But I screamed madly, "Leave me alone! Let me see her! Let me cry with her! Why are you following me? Why are you torturing me? Don't you see her? She's here! She's here! Standing at the big door. Look, her blood is flooding the place." They stared at me in shock, as if they couldn't see what I saw, as if I was alone in this eternal nightmare. "If I leave the cabin, she'll kill me." "I can't leave. Take me inside. I have to go back. I have to answer the phone." I grabbed the phone, picked up the receiver, and said in a trembling voice, "Hello, hello, Yasmin." But there was no one, only silence. And now, the question that no one has been able to answer to this day. What is happening to Ali? Has he been possessed by a demon? Or is he just a mind lost between reality and madness? Is he haunted or pursued, or a victim of a past he couldn't escape? No one knows. No one knows the secret of Ali.